Hello and welcome to the Business of Meaning podcast. I'm Eric Rosenberg, and today I'm delighted to be speaking with Dr. Sherry Walling, PhD. She helps smart people do hard things, and she has so much experience. She's a clinical psychologist, but she's also an entrepreneur, a keynote speaker, a yoga teacher, a best-selling author with the book, The Entrepreneur's Guide to Keeping Your Shit Together, and also a podcaster. Her podcast, Zen Founder, is one of the top 12 best podcasts for entrepreneurs, according to Forbes. And she has a wealth of knowledge and practical tips to share with us today in this interesting times. So please enjoy Dr. Sherry Walling. Sherry Walling, I'm so happy to see you today. How are you?
I am wonderful. It is so great to talk with you.
Thank you for taking the time. Interesting time. I was actually reading on your website that 72% of entrepreneurs struggle with their mental health. So how come there's so many of us independent business owners, especially in the meetings and event industry, but 72%, how come, and how come that people never speak about that?
Yeah, that stat is from a study done in partnership between UC San Francisco and UC Berkeley by a psychiatrist named Dr. Michael Freeman. So he was asking entrepreneurs about all kinds of different mental health concerns. And so in this group of entrepreneurs, I think he asked like 300 or so, 72% of them self-identified as being worried about their own mental health. So They were like, yes, I have concerns about my mental health, is the way that the question was phrased. And I think when you are in business for yourself, when you have started something, founded something, made something, you put so much more of yourself into your business than a sort of normal 9 to 5. And that's not to, negate the amount of passion and attention and care that goes into lots of people's vocations. But when you're an entrepreneur, there's something where you put so much of yourself and your well-being on the line. And I think that makes even the most well-adjusted of us sort of take pause and realize, this is a lot. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot more anxiety that entrepreneurs experience. We can do a deeper dive into the details of that study, but I think, it's in the water for those of us who are entrepreneurs that there's just an added level of stress and intensity that goes along with our work life.
And how come I remember Brené Brown, her TED Talk and all our keynote about vulnerability, but how come that people are still it's taboo to speak about mental health? Why is it
I think it's especially hard for entrepreneurs because there's so much overlap between the person and the brand. So if I, Sherry, am having a hard time, if I'm struggling with depression or if I'm having a bad day, then does that call into question the integrity of my company? Is my company having a bad day? Is my company struggling with depression? So I think entrepreneurs especially feel this pressure to really keep up the appearance of strength and confidence and cohesiveness because they are an extension of their company and they want to protect the public appearance of their company. So especially in an era where so many of us live so much of our lives out in public and social media, there's not as much definition or space between private internal experience and public professional company experience. And I think that's particularly difficult for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, you're talking about social media. We all know it's not real life. We all know it's you have to be happy all the time. You have to show up there. And it's almost like the more you're on social media, the more you can even get depressed because you might think that everybody's having a great life with you.
Sure. Everyone's highlight reel is much better looking than your real life. So it's truth-ish, right? It's inspired by real events, but it's a fictionalized version of life for sure.
Now, in your podcast, Zen Founder, one of the last episodes you spoke about shelter in place. Now, not only are you an entrepreneur, you're married to an entrepreneur, and now both of you are at home with kids. How do you manage to do that?
I will be honest. I am very grateful for years of working from home right now. So both my husband and I have at various points in our careers worked from home, often worked at home at the same time. And we've had experience homeschooling one of our three children. So I'm really grateful that we had a little bit of a footprint for what life can look like to live so much out of our home space. And so, yeah, there's a lot of communication and certainly a lot of challenge now that three children are home homeschooling at different ages in different schools with different grades and all the things. But I'm, again, grateful for having done it before a little bit to know that I probably need to just adjust my expectations about how much can get done in a day and amplify my level of communication with my partner, with my children, and frankly, with myself around what I need in a day and what's most pressing and what's most important and what I can let go of.
Right. What you're saying about you have experience working from home. We have in the meetings and event industry about 80% of the people working in our industry are women. And I would think that most of us and most of the women in the industry are not necessarily trained into just working from home all the time. So what would be your advice as a woman, as an entrepreneur, as a mother? What are different tricks that they could be using to maintain mental health, to maintain sanity in the house while still being able to think about the future?
I think number one, it's recognize that this is really hard. That particularly as women, particularly as mothers, even in wonderful relationships, we more often bear the mental load of the emotional, educational, physical well-being of children in a different way than our male partners. So that, again, is not to negate the contribution of fathers, but it is to say that we have a pretty significant body of research that says that women are just carrying more of it still. So first and foremost, this is hard. This is not business as usual. You cannot expect of yourself that you will perform as if this is business as usual, right, as a parent, as a house manager, or as a professional. Really practically, I think it's important to spend some time doing some self-reflection around when are you most productive? How can you most protect what little precious work time you might have? And then how do you really negotiate with the other adults in your household or with your children, depending on how old they are, to protect some time for yourself? So for example, my schedule now, I get up at about 5:30 or 6. I have about an hour and a half of time for exercise, for reading, for just my own sane time. Then I have about 2 hours with my kids, making breakfast, getting them started for the day, getting them going on schoolwork. Then I have a 3-hour block where I have dedicated, focused work time. My husband is sort of managing the children while they do their schoolwork. Then I have a 3-hour block in the middle of the day where I'm generally with my children, running around, taking them on walks, making them lunch, just doing that stuff. Then I go back to work for another 3-hour block. This is very specific, I'm sorry, but I think it just helps to really flesh out. So basically I have 6 hours of dedicated work time in a day. That's not what I would like, but it's what's reasonable right now for my family, and it makes it work for all of us. So that's an adjustment of my expectations. I'm not going to get as much done. I'm not going to be as prepared for things as I would like to be, but that is the time that I have. So I do the best I can with it.
And in terms of the interaction you have, not only with your family, with people in general, a lot of what I'm hearing now is a kind of silver lining of the whole situation is that we're actually having deeper conversation with people. Do you experience that as well?
I think we are having more intentional conversation with people, right? There's not a lot of casual interactions. If I want to be with a friend, you have to make that plan and set up the Zoom date and set up the computer in your living room and hang out. So I think we're really recognizing how to be very intentional in our interactions. And I do think there's a deeper level of conversation that's happening largely because a lot of us are afraid. A lot of us are facing different kinds of challenges than we've faced before. And when we are aware of our own vulnerabilities, maybe the vulnerability of our business, I hopefully we're in relationships where we can share those vulnerabilities more, and that leads to, deeper connection.
Mm-hmm. Well, I must say that in this industry, we have a lot of stress as usual, but now even more so. And there's probably a lot of anxiety that is coming now above the stress. So what are some of the tips and advice that you can share to basically manage this stress and manage this anxiety? Also not knowing exactly when this is gonna end and how long this is gonna take before something else happens.
Yeah, which is a great reminder to control what you can control, right? There's so many unknown variables right now. We don't know timelines. We don't know all kinds of policies and procedures and how they're going to shape our businesses. One of the things that is most directly controllable or accessible to us, though, is our own bodies. And so when we talk about stress or anxiety management, one of the best tools available is really just understanding how to calm your own body down and getting good at that. So that can mean deep breaths. It can mean long runs. It can mean sit-ups and push-ups and, dance parties. It can mean anything that helps you shift from this hamster wheel in your head and move some of that energy into your body, and your body then moves some of that stress hormone reaction around and hopefully releases some of it through physical movement. So I'm not talking about a real intense exercise program, but now more than ever, your ability to move and be present with your body is one of the best things that's most accessible to you and can help manage the stress and anxiety that you're carrying that you feel out of control of.
And what are the tools we can be using, especially for those who have never actually took the time to do that?
Yeah, walks around the block. When you notice in your body, your chest feels tight or your throat feels tight, maybe you notice that your breathing is fast or your heart's beating faster. Maybe you're just getting a lot of headaches because there's a lot of tension in your back and your neck. Those are all the physiological cues that your stress level is too high. And that's when it's time to get up and just walk around the block. If that's accessible to you, if you are in a place where you can physically leave your house even for a few minutes. Also, a baby meditation practice, beginning a meditation practice, beginning a yoga practice are excellent strategies to help manage anxiety. And those are, there are lots of great tools available online right now. Every yoga studio in the country suddenly has online classes, so you don't have to leave your living room.
It's true. And I was listening to Pete Diamandis recently, was saying, you know what? We don't know how long it's going to take, and take advantage of now to basically get a new habit. And that might be a morning routine, that might be meditation or yoga, but get into that habit for a few weeks so that afterwards you can continue with that.
Yeah. It's also really helpful to just change the scene, right? When you're moving, you're changing what's happening in your body. We're all sort of trapped in our homes right now, but it might mean you're moving from your home office to the living room, to the basement, to the bedroom, to the roof, to the, just moving location can help reset your mind and help you feel a little bit more flexible in the cognitive strategies that you're using to deal with stress.
Do that, yeah. Now, you know me, I cannot help, but even in a serious topic, I need to put a little bit of fun in it. So I want to take the opportunity of speaking to a doctor in psychology and a PhD to help me understand something. In the Maslow pyramid, at the bottom used to be hygiene and security, and now we have toilet paper. What is the rush with that?
Oh, do you really want to go here? Okay. Yeah, no, we should talk about this. But we're going to have to talk about Freud.
Okay. Sigmund?
Sigmund Freud, yeah. So Freud theorized that as we go through our stages of early development, there are these emphases on different parts of our bodies as we're learning to walk or learning to potty train. So all of potty training, toileting, learning to use the bathroom is about control. So when humans feel deeply out of control, it is absolutely not surprising to me at all that we think about toilet paper, because this is like, we're trying to manage our sphincter, right? This is, talk about anal retentive. Like, I got to control shit. So I'm going to literally hoard toilet paper so that I can feel some sense of mastery over my life. So when we as humans feel really, really out of control, we get a little, I don't even know what to say. We just get a little wonky. Right. And toilet paper is one of our first go-tos, because we want to be able to squeeze and release and manage that whole situation appropriately.
That's the first time I hear that explanation, but it makes a lot of sense now to me. I was like stunned watching people doing this. And what are they doing? And I mean, well, at least we're all going to die with a clean bottom. I think that was the...
Absolutely. Power and control. We'll get it one way or another.
So you said that the first thing is really to be aware of the stress and the anxiety you have, and then tackling it with whether it's walking or meditating or yoga. When you've reached that phase where you're a little bit more calm, what is the next thing? What are the next advice you would like to share with us about the future, about what's going to come next, and how to prepare ourselves better? So that, I don't know what we're going to learn from this, but at least there's some positive learning and something different happen. What do you think is going to happen afterwards?
I think on the psychological level, this is a really great time to begin something like a journaling practice.
Okay. And
begin to keep track of what feels most important to you, of what you're learning during this time. Because the crisis will end and events will begin again, and we will all get busy again going about our lives. Mm-hmm. But I think the only way to, redeem whatever is valuable about this experience is to let it shape our inner worlds and help ourselves to become a little bit more reflective and a little bit more wise about what we truly value and what really matters to us. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how to do that without really writing it down, giving it some space, studying it, paying attention to it. Because it's really easy to, when the busyness resumes, just jump back into our old way of being.
And I think also people will actually, they're now craving for human face-to-face contact. And that would probably and hopefully give a better appreciation for everything we do in face-to-face events. Of course, there's an online part, but it's really things that are happening in the hall in the conversation. You cannot get it online. It's impossible.
Right. If anything, I hope the world is sort of learning the value of what you and your colleagues do, which is to host situations where people get together, they learn from each other, they sit in a room together, and they have conversations that sort of shape how the world works. And I think we'll all be so hungry for that and ready to dive back into those experiences when this is over.
Absolutely. To your point, is people are craving experiences. It's not only meeting, it is experiences. One of your recent podcasts was really resonated a lot with me, because I lost my father on the 20th of March, and you were speaking about grief and courage in the time of pandemic. So hopefully few listeners are faced with grief, but I would say that all of us are faced with courage. What do you want to share with all of us that help get through the situation right now?
I think all of us are also faced with grief. Maybe not as poignant as your recent loss. And just so heart goes out to you in not being able to be at a funeral and do some of the routines of grief that tend to be helpful. I also lost my dad, 17 months ago today, and my brother 11 months ago today. So grief is a place that I've been living as well. But the reason that I wanted to talk about it in relationship to coronavirus is because there's lots of losses, right? The loss of our livelihood for many people who may be listening to this, the loss of, our kids being able to go to prom or have a little league season.
Yes.
Those are big losses. They're significant, right? You have a kiddo who's going off to college, but not doing all of the normal routines that a senior in high school might do.
Yeah.
And I think, generally speaking, Americans and maybe Western civilization is not very good at grief. We're not very good at naming losses. We're pretty quick to say, okay, then what do we do? Mm-hmm. And so I'm hopeful that we will be pretty tender with ourselves around these losses. And it's the tenderness, it's the really facing the things that hurt that invite the space for courage. Courage isn't just steamrolling and saying, well, the show will go on. Courage is really saying, like, this loss is really painful, and I really loved this person, or I loved this plan. I loved my business. It mattered to me, and it's not here anymore. So I will find the strength to go on, but I'm not going to do it with a bulldozer or steamroller, right? You do it with tenderness because you're appreciative of the loss that you've suffered.
And you don't try to get the feelings away, but you're facing it.
Yeah. So it's a difficult message because, yes, I do think there are lessons in this for all of us. I do think there are probably some silver linings. I think that if we choose to, we can come out the other side as better humans. But I don't hold that optimism without also holding a deep sense of loss for how many people are suffering and struggling. Mm-hmm. And I want to hold on to both of those. I think we all have to hold on to both of those in order to be very human on the other side.
Yes, absolutely. Love that thought. And talking about silver lining, I was on another podcast speaking with my friend Mike Dominguez, and I said, the silver lining for me is that I'm spending a lot of time with my wife and my daughters, which I've never spent so much time. To which he replied, yeah, that might be your silver lining, but maybe not their silver lining.
Yeah. My psychology friends and I joke, like, at the end of this, there will be lots of babies and lots of divorces. Yes. Right? There's some of us where we're like, whoa, all this togetherness is really no bueno for the relationship. And then some of us where we're like, hey, I love this togetherness.
And also a lot of parents who finally realize that not all their kids are gifted.
Yes. Right.
So Sherry, I'd like to end the conversation with something that is linked to the fact that we're always working and the productivity. Any person in the meetings and event industry for sure is like kind of multitasking, even if multitasking doesn't exist or is not, very efficient. But we always have to deal with different projects. We always have to deal with a lot of things going on in our lives, private and professional life coming together. So what are your advice for independent business owners in the meetings and event industry when it comes to mental load and productivity and managing your time and making sure that you can be grounded, that you can do what needs to be done, and also think about the future?
I'm a big fan of just keeping things as simple as possible, which is whatever you're doing, do that. There's really some myth around multitasking that we can bounce back and forth between different things. And I think we've, in neuroscience, fairly well debunked that myth. The fact is, whatever is most important, give your full attention to it. You'll finish it quicker, and then you can move on to the next thing. And I, personally am a big fan of time boxing. You heard in my pandemic schedule, these sort of chunks of time. And within those chunks of time, there are different chunks for this is meeting time, this is email time, this is billing admin time, that everything that's important has a place on your calendar. And if it's not important, it doesn't get a place, right? And it doesn't get a place in your day. So I think hopefully we're all learning some different and new techniques to really be focused and to discipline our minds to focus on one task despite the pull to be distracted by many, many things that are in our homes or on the internet right now. Mm-hmm. But the invitation to really let yourself be really present in the one thing that you're doing, even that's a 5-minute time box, even if it's a 3-hour time box, I think is so much more neurologically healthy and a better recipe for mental health in the long run.
Awesome. Thank you so much for spending the time with us today. If anybody wants to read about your work or listening to you, zenfounder.com and the Zen Founder podcast. I can wait for our next conversation and being back face to face and having the opportunity to talk with you. Thank you so much, Sherry.
Thanks, Eric. Take good care. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, Sherry Walling, for sharing your knowledge with us. As usual, I learn a lot from you, listening to you, whether it's how to cope with stress and anxiety, having a walk, simple things. And as you said, you like to keep things simple and effective. I also learn this psychological impulse that make people rush for toilet paper, which kind of is very interesting. And most importantly, thank you for sharing with us your tips about productivity, about time boxing, and making sure that even if it's 5 minutes or 2 hours, that we are fully present in what we do at the moment that we do it. As usual, if you have any question, reach out to me via email on the Event Business Formula Facebook page or through LinkedIn, or let me know if there's anybody specific that you would like to hear from in the future. Thank you.